I go back to the real world tomorrow. Kind of a bummer. I tried to become a board game content creator. Over the last 2 months, I've been on sabbatical from work. After working for the same job for 20 years, that is a reward I got, and I wanted to take advantage of it. I spent time with family. We went on adventures throughout our homeland in the Pacific Northwest. And I role-played as a board game content creator, of all things. I didn't just make a couple videos. I made 22 videos. It took me about 10 hours per video, not taking into account the learning and playing of the games, just to produce these things. That's 220 hours over the last 8 weeks that I spent creating content. That is far from the 10,000 hour mastery rule, but I did make some progress. I really started from scratch, having never really done any of this before and frankly really uncomfortable in front of the camera. I felt as if there were 100 people in this tiny room staring at me and laughing every time I spoke to an absent camera. In fact, now it still feels a little awkward. However, those 100 people have gone and nobody is laughing at me, at least in my head. While I film this right now. You might be laughing at me out there, I don't know. Leave it in the comments. But it's certainly gotten better and a little easier. I also started from scratch in editing. My editing time technically hasn't gone down since I started. My edits just started to become more and more complex, and I'm adding more and more things into them. So basically that time in which I'm spending to edit a video is not going down, which is tough. However, I feel like I'm getting better and better at the craft, or at least the nuts and bolts. It remains to be seen if how I put it together is compelling, but at least now I know how to do some things. Like, I can make this spaceship go around my head. I can also make my favorite boy band pop out of nowhere. And I can kick my least favorite boy band out of the scene. I also finally had an excuse to buy way too many board games, as I told my wife this was my one shot to make it in life. And I kind of went crazy over the last 2 months. Speaking of that, let's talk a little bit about results. I never really had expectations, especially when I first started going about this. But early on, before I started this experiment, the channel was in its infancy for about a month, and I started to get some really great and encouraging comments, which led me to hope that this thing might be viable. And side note, for those of you that are commenting on a brand new creator and helping to lift them up, you're an angel. It honestly makes a huge difference, which we'll get to later. But back to my hopes. I had hoped that I'd have thousands of subscribers and publishers knocking on my door, begging me to cover their games, and that's not what happened at all. So as I record this, I'm approaching 400 subs, 7,200 views, and 500 hours of watch time. Now, backing up 3 months, if you would have told me that that would be the result, or I would ever even have a YouTube channel, frankly, it would have blown my mind. You see, I very much despise public speaking and being the center of attention. That's not something naturally I like. Even despite me having to do a lot of that at my current job, I just hate it. So the thought of putting myself out there and uploading something to YouTube that, you know, even tens of people will see really terrified me. It's really tough to do. Even right now, after 22 videos, every time my mouse hovers on that submit button, my heart starts thumping. And when a comment comes through and a notification, my breath is taken away just a little, hoping that that person isn't pointing out one of my many flaws in these videos, or personally attacking my appearance, or what an idiot I am for the take that I had just had. And that brings me to my first learning. People are nice. 99.9% of my comments, as few as they are, have been very positive and encouraging, and in fact, more so than subs or just views or whatever. That's what's kind of kept me going when somebody essentially says something nice. There's very few negative people out there relative to the positive, at least at the level that I'm at right now. The second thing I've learned is I've become addicted to the approval of others, or at least a faceless person on the internet. It honestly feels unbelievable to pour your heart and soul into something, and having even just one person justify the time that you had just spent by saying something nice. Presenting in front of a camera simply gets easier relative to your natural skill, and I'm not going to deny that there are some people that have a natural skill in front of the camera. Like Alex from Board Game Co. I'm never going to be able to go uncut and teach overview of board game and give my thoughts. If you've seen any of my videos, I cut a ton. That's because I fumble my words all of the time, but it's simply getting easier. I don't get the anxiety and the tightness in chest as I start to talk to this inanimate object in front of me. It's starting to feel a little bit more natural, at least alone in my shed in the backyard. The fourth thing that I learned is editing is really difficult. I've spent an insane amount of time learning how to edit, and then even longer with trial and error on these videos, trying to make something unique and fun and something that adds to the conversation. That has come at a major time cost. And number 5 is timing is everything. When I put up a video on something that's relevant on the hotness, especially in the top 10, it naturally gets clicks and it naturally gets pushed out to more people. If I'm even a few weeks to a month late on something, it just kind of sits there and dies. Which brings me to a new creator is at a huge disadvantage when they don't get early access to games. I'm not saying I should, I haven't earned the right. I'm just saying it's a fact of life. It's very difficult to put out content on something that is older, and in the board game space, it becomes older really, really quickly, as I found. Simply put, we're at a disadvantage. So now I'm relegated to pre-ordering and hoping Game Nerds ships their things out on time, or hoping that I pre-ordered at the right place that's going to ship it first. Also really excited about what a degenerate I am and how many Kickstarters I had backed in the last year, because that will give me early-ish access. But at that same time, reviews have already been done on all of those games by the top content creators, so I really have to think about how I add to that conversation and not just mimic, because that's not going to get anybody interested. Speaking of number 6, I learned Rome wasn't built in a day. There's a finite number of eyes and watch hours on YouTube, and when people already trust and have their favorite content creators, they're naturally going to watch their content on the same games first. I've learned that I have to build trust through consistency and quality over time to hopefully build an audience that gets your videos ranked early enough to be able to be thrown out to the wider audience via algorithm and hopefully find more people to watch your stuff. And that leaves me with more of a hope than a learning. I certainly learned that I can't build a successful YouTube channel in a matter of months. I now hope that I can build a successful channel over a matter of a year or years. And number 7, what I learned was I love it. I really do. I love the art of making videos. I love the art of editing. I love board games. I love to play them. I love to critique them. It has made the 220 hours plus that I've spent in editing and even more time in researching, reading rule books, and playing. It's made it feel not like work. And I'm sure all of that stuff leads to burnout eventually, like anything in life. But for right now, I simply have learned I want to keep going. And speaking of keeping going, where does this channel go now? That bird is killing me. I don't know if you could hear it. Did it stop? Nope. It's gonna go again. All right, on to goals. I want to build the channel that gains access to the board game industry. I would love to foster relationships throughout the industry that might lead to a career change. I'd love to design a board game and bring an audience along on that journey. I think that would be so interesting. Nested with that is I would love to start a podcast that interviews people from the industry as well as designers. That would go nicely with me trying to design my own board game. And my background is in retail and planning and all of that fun stuff. So I think I might have success in opening a brick and mortar store, which in today's day and age is actually a really stupid thing to say, but I would love to own a board game store. I would personally love to watch somebody on their journey in starting that board game store. In closing, I'm thankful for the personal growth that I've experienced over the last 2 months, even though the results weren't going board game viral. And if you're one of the people that have supported this journey, whether it be from a view, a like, a sub, or most importantly, a comment, thank you. Honestly, like no BS. You have fueled my passion and helped me to keep going. And just know that that stuff honestly makes a huge difference. You listen to most YouTubers and like and subscribe, comment, answer this question, yada, yada, yada. I can't speak for them, but I can speak for myself. I've put my heart and soul into this project and experiment. And when somebody says something nice and justifies that, honestly, it like puts me on cloud 9. And if you haven't engaged with me in the past, say hi. Honestly, help a guy out. I don't need any money or Patreon or anything like that right now. The simple act of somebody taking their time to lift another up is really a beautiful thing. And after experiencing that, I'm going to try to do that more and more. And on that note, here's to enjoying the journey independent of any results whatsoever. I hope to be doing this many months, even years into the future, and I appreciate your support. If you made it this far, maybe think about subscribing. I don't know. Have a great day.